The world was once again shocked by extraordinary news from the Korean peninsula. For the first time in history, the supreme leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-Un, was seen wearing ihram and performing the Umrah pilgrimage in the Holy Land of Mecca. But that's not all. Even more surprising news came from within the country. A large wave of North Korean people reportedly converted to Islam en masse. What really happened? What is the reason behind this extraordinary change? Read the full story only here. Kim Jong-un is known as a very secretive and controversial leader. For years, North Korea has run an authoritarian system of government with the Juche ideology, where the state and leaders are glorified like religion. However, in recent years, signs of change have slowly emerged. Sources from international intelligence reported that Kim Jong-un had held secret meetings with scholars from the Middle East. Reportedly, he became interested in studying Islam after reading about social justice and peace taught in the Quran. Then the world was shocked. During a secret diplomatic visit to Saudi Arabia, Kim Jong-un reportedly took the time to visit the Grand Mosque. Not only did he visit, he was even said to have recited the 2 sentences of the Shahada and performed the Umrah pilgrimage as a convert. Social media exploded. The world could not believe the sight of Kim Jong-un walking in the courtyard of the Kaaba with his small entourage. Not a few praised his steps as a turning point in history. But what was more astonishing was what happened after that. Thousands, even hundreds of thousands of North Koreans began to show interest in Islam. Small mosques began to be built secretly in Pyongyang and several other cities. The underground Islamic movement that had been suppressed for so long now began to emerge to the surface. In a short time, this phenomenon became a spiritual revolution. People who had lived under ideological pressure found peace in the teachings of Islam. They called it the light from the Middle East that now illuminates North Korea. Many observers believe that this change is not only about religion, but also a sign of the spiritual awakening of the North Korean people who thirst for truth in the true meaning of life. Will this be the beginning of a new North Korea? Will Islam become a bridge of peace on the Korean peninsula? Only time will tell. In the dead of night in Pyongyang, the soft sound of the call to prayer is heard from a small basement. It is not an official call, but for a handful of North Koreans who have recently converted to Islam, it is the sound of freedom, the sound of hope. I never imagined that I would prostrate myself before an invisible God. In the past, we were only allowed to worship one image, the face of our leader. But Islam taught me about love, peace, and humanity. Diplomatic relations between North Korea and Middle Eastern countries have suddenly increased. Many speculate that Kim Jong-un is opening a new path, not just politically, but also spiritually. Religious scholars from countries such as Turkey and Egypt have been secretly invited to become spiritual advisors. They teach interpretation, Islamic jurisprudence, and even introduce the Islamic economic system as an alternative to the socialist system that is now being abandoned. Then a historic event happened. The North Korean government inaugurated the first mosque in Pyongyang. Not an underground mosque, not a hidden place of worship, but a grand mosque in the heart of the city. The world was shocked. The world was stunned. Many began to wonder, was this merely a tactical shift, or was it a spiritual transformation? America and its allies smelled a major geopolitical shift. Islamic countries welcomed it with optimism and open hearts. Then came Ramadan. For the first time in North Korea's modern history, the holy month was celebrated openly. Despite their modesty, people share dates, Zamzam water, and smiles they've never seen before. A new warmth has emerged, not from propaganda, but from faith. We searched for our identity, and we found it in Islam, a religion that teaches balance, discipline, and compassion, values we've been missing for so long. In a small village in Ryanggang province, a mother hugs her child who has just returned from an underground Islamic school. In her hands, she holds a small copy of the Quran smuggled from abroad. She spells out verses from the Quran haltingly, but her tears flow freely, because for the first time, her heart feels at ease. North Korean children who were once fed propaganda are now beginning to learn words like mercy, gratitude, and tawhid. They are growing up with a new spirit, amidst a slowly changing era. However, not all countries are welcoming the news with joy. At the UN, some Western countries are questioning North Korea's new direction. They fear that the rise of Islam there could become a new ideological weapon that shakes the global order. In a secret document leaked to the media, it was stated that this religious change has the potential to trigger instability in the East Asian region. But on the other hand, Muslim countries have increased cooperation, from humanitarian aid, sending religious teachers, to halal infrastructure development projects. And it culminated on a Friday that will never be forgotten. At the Kim Il-sung Stadium, tens of thousands of people attended an event that was originally called the National Declaration for Peace. But in the middle of the event, the sound of takbir echoed. One by one, people raised their right hands and recited the two sentences of the Shahada in unison. The Pyongyang Grand Mosque has now become a symbol of changing times. Its first Grand Imam, Ustaz Kang Myung-ho, a former philosophy lecturer who converted to Islam after studying the logic of the Quran, is now a central figure in this Enlightenment movement. A year after his first Umrah, Kim Jong-Un returned to the Holy Land. This time, it was no longer in secret. He came as a head of state and as a Muslim. The world watched and was stunned. Who would have thought that from such a dark land, the light of Islam could shine? Perhaps this is what Allah meant in the letter An-Nur. But behind this spiritual awakening, a storm began to gather. Within the military and party elite, divisions emerged. Not everyone accepted this change. Some senior generals considered Kim Jong-un's conversion to Islam as a form of betrayal of the Juche ideology. Rumors of a coup began to circulate. Several high-ranking officers reportedly secretly communicated with foreign intelligence to stop the Islamization of North Korea. But the leader remained calm. He ordered not oppression, but preaching and patience. Meanwhile, in South Korea, the people were also divided. Most were amazed and welcomed the changes in North Korea, but others were suspicious, worried that this was just a political maneuver. Peaceful actions began to emerge, especially from young people. They called for reunification not only in politics, but in values. They called it spiritual reunification, the peaceful unification of the two Koreas through Islamic values. Another historic event also occurred. For the first time, clerics from the South and North met at the DMZ, not as enemies, but as brothers in faith. They prayed together, recited takbir, and hugged each other. But global pressure was also mounting. Major powers, feeling they were losing influence, began tightening sanctions, spreading propaganda, and funding opposition groups. The world seemed divided between those who supported this spiritual transformation and those who rejected it outright. Amidst the uncertainty, Kim Jong-un made a public speech. Broadcast live around the world, he said, "I once believed in the power of arms in isolation, but now I believe in the power of prayer in brotherhood. We are not perfect, but we are learning, and we are opening the door, not to surrender, but to brotherhood." The speech went viral, touching the hearts of millions. Even in countries that were once hostile to North Korea, new sympathy emerged. A wave of solidarity across borders echoed.